When I first came across Imogen's work, I was intrigued because she does something powerful and at times misunderstood. She's a woman working almost exclusively with men, and she does it through deep, honest connection. As someone who believes in the power of human connection, regardless of gender, I knew I had to have her on my podcast. Imogen helps men who are struggling silently, men who are high functioning on the outside, but disconnected or overwhelmed on the inside. She helps them untangle the mess of overthinking, take responsibility, and rebuild a life they actually want to show up for. Thank you for joining me today, Imogen. So first I want to start with your why. I think that's so important, your why of why you do the work you do. So what first drew you to work with men specifically?
I find it such an interesting process because the coaching thing evolved from a pursuit of what am I passionate about? Like, what do I actually want to be doing? I was made redundant from a really good job, and I just was left sitting there going like, what is it that I want to do? So the whole coaching journey, my whole business journey has been this pursuit of like, what is my passion and where is that leading me? Never, this is what I want to do, therefore this has to be the outcome. So I feel like that context is important because I started working with women. That was where I started. And then I got a guy come into my my atmosphere sort of thing at a retreat that I was helping run. And I just sort of felt like it synced up really well. And, you know, I sort of said to him about the coaching opportunity and he was like, look, if you're putting your hand out, I'm going to take it. And I had my first session with him and I remember saying to my coach, like, this is it. This has got to be it. Like that felt so, like it felt so good. It felt so aligned for me. And so then I pivoted my whole business. And since then, the why has unearthed, I guess, is the big thing. And I think for me, that comes from, you know, a childhood of trauma and abuse and things like that. And not having strong male role models leading children around and knowing that a lot of that trauma came from, you know, like replicating what I knew rather than, you know, like a better outcome. And the, you know, the boys that happened with and around as well didn't have strong male role models either. And so I look around and I go, we really need this in our world. Like I can't change my experience, but I can help shift that for the next generation. And so that's my.
That's awesome that you came across it just by helping someone.
Yeah.
And when you come across that, you're sure, instead of just saying, I think sometimes we get in our heads, this is what we're going to do, and you can stay on that path even it's not right, to have that experience and go, this is right now.
Yeah. Well, I think like for me, I won't do things that I don't like anymore. Like if it, like that period from like women to I think I need to go and coach men, once I saw it, I could not unsee it. And so I cannot stay where I am and I won't for very long. So that process of that transition happened very quickly.
That's awesome. So what were your early experiences like? Because you said you'd been made redundant. You were in a male-dominated field, weren't you?
Yeah.
And what was that experience like as a female?
A lot of comments about ducks on the pond and things like that, but I was a safety advisor at an export coal port up in North Queensland. So it was the first industrial experience that I'd had, and it was highly male dominated. But my role was to spend 6 hours a day in the field every day with the guys. And so I was having to constantly, like, with the fear of talking publicly and all of those sorts of things, I was constantly having to put myself in work groups of people that didn't want me there because A, I was a woman, and two, B, I was safety. And so I was like, the like, you know, stay out, tools down, you know, like nothing to see here. But over that time, I think I developed this relationship, which was like, I'm not here to pin you for anything. I'm here to understand, like, the, you know, for me, human dynamics and human psychology is really interesting in the way that it plays out. So it's like, well, why are we doing these behaviors and what's actually going on? And over time, I became the person that lots of guys would seek out on site and tell me about their problems with their marriage and tell me about the issues that they were struggling with and tell me about all of those sorts of experiences for no other reason than I actually genuinely cared and had time for them. So I feel like that role was a really interesting learning period for me, and I look.
And it probably helped you in some way to do what you're doing now without realizing it. You probably learned a lot back then.
Yeah, it's set me up for where I am right now. Absolutely. Like it was the first corporate environment that I'd ever been in. You know, like I was even just speaking on stages and like, you know, hosting retreats and things like that. Now it's like people say, how do you get over the fear of talking in public or like speaking publicly? I'm like, I had to walk into so many safety briefings, like room of 100 men, where the senior supervisors took pleasure in saying to me when I was like so green on site, Imogen, what do you think about this? And I was like, you know, terrified of public speaking. And so like walking into project management briefings and, you know, things like that on major shutdowns and having to speak at a table full of executives and believe, you know, like not be quivering sort of thing. Like over that period of time, it really just was the exposure therapy, but also systems and processes and standards and, you know, like all of that sort of stuff was a huge learning for me.
And I imagine it's also, it would have been at times a hostile crowd. So that, like what that teaches you, you know, how to hold yourself in front of that sort of crowd, that would have been so invaluable.
Yeah, it was.
Scary at the time though.
In the beginning, but like we talk about all the time, I think like, you know, I spoke about this, you know, Evan's got it as well in our sales coaching program is like it's all in the reps.
Yeah.
Like everything is in the reps. You don't like people. I have men come to me all the time that say, I just really want to be confident. And I'm like, well, confidence is an outcome of knowing something so well. So you have to understand yourself so well that you feel confident in what you're saying or what you're thinking or what you're believing. And so, you know, like I think over that period of time, it's like you only stand up so many times before you go, I'm going to be so prepared for this because I know that they're going to call on me and I need to have something that so I'm driving down there practicing what I'm going to say when they say, Imogen, what do you think about this? Or what do you have to say? Or what do you have to deliver? Or, you know, coming into pre-starts and things like that and having to sit in the group and ask the guys questions and things, you know, like you only go unprepared for me once before you go, right, well, I'm never going to be involved in that shit show again. Like I'm going to be prepared for the rest of it.
But I love what you said about confidence. It's like, I know we throw the word authenticity around a lot, but if you can't be confident showing up in a situation if you're not sure of who you are, because then I guess you feel like a fraud and you can't be confident in being a fraud. I work with a coach myself all the time and we talk about we shouldn't say fake it till you make it. Like, because you need to be sure who you are. Like it's the faking it that's not necessarily the great.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that we are predominantly like society wide, and I'm not saying everyone at all, but most people are so scared to learn. You know, to look like they don't know what they're doing or to look like they're unsure or to make a fool of themselves or to embarrass themselves in some way or to show up unprepared. You know, like that's the thing that terrifies people. And that's the only thing that helps us build confidence is to show up and go, like, I'm here to learn. I'm here to experience. I'm here to explore. I'm here to understand. Like my outlook, my why, my everything has changed radically so many times because I'm in the pursuit of passion, which means that I don't have it all sorted out. I don't know the answers. You know, like I don't know what, like I don't, like I'm looking at what my goals are now for 2026, but you know, ultimately I've got goals for 5 years and 10 years down the track. I am my goal right now that I was in, you know, setting in 2022 when I started. So, but it doesn't look anything like I thought it would. And at the same time, it kind of does.
Yeah.
I think that we're in the pursuit of having to know the answers before we start.
Yeah, we think we should be perfect. And that actually ties into I had Mickey on last week's show and she said, we've lost the art of fucking up.
Yeah.
It's essentially saying we're not perfect, we're fucked up, but we've learned from it.
Yeah.
We think we're never a finished human.
No.
And it's just, and I love that. And I've got a tattoo that says progress over perfection.
Yeah.
Because I struggle with it. And it's like reminding yourself every day, I've just got to make a little bit of progress.
Yeah.
And you only do that by learning and having that want to learn. And I think if you lose that, that's when you get unhappy.
And you're the hardest thing you'll ever have to figure out, ever have to learn, ever have to master. I say to the guys all the time, like my outlook now, it took a while to formulate it, but the end, or I've made it, or I've mastered this, that for me is dead. Like when I reach that pinnacle point of like I understand all of it, I've made it, I don't need to do anything else. That's like, see ya, I'm out. But because I think that it is this progressive, like we will always be evolving, we'll always be expanding, we'll always be able to have that awareness change, shift, or the perspective, like gain some new information and change, or be able to receive something new. But there is, like I see it so much right now that the hardest place to be is at the beginning of yourself. Like I was talking to a guy this morning and he was just saying, well, am I supposed to go back and, like pick on all my mistakes? And I'm like, well, if you're looking for a problem, you'll find problems. But if we're looking for opportunity, if we're looking for growth, if we're looking for learning, if we're extracting the information so that we don't need to repeat that again, that's a totally different outcome. That's a totally different lay of the land. That's a totally different adventure to be on. But I see that, like we project that purpose, if you will, outside of ourselves and say, well, this is my reason for being, like my kids are my reason for being, or this is the reason why I show up, or that, my job gives me meaning, or my partnership, whatever it is. And while we outsource that and put it somewhere outside of ourselves, we're still like avoiding ourselves in some way, because it's true, like you're the hardest thing that you'll ever have to understand and ever have to reconcile and ever have to figure out how to navigate.
And I think the thing with learning, it does make us feel uncomfortable because we're learning.
Yeah.
And I talk about that all the time. And then it's that uncomfortable feeling, I think, why people stop wanting to learn.
Yeah.
But if you push through that, then that's where the beauty comes.
Definitely.
So when you started your journey working with men, did you struggle with internal doubts about working with men as a woman, or you just knew?
Gosh, my brain is an interesting place. I definitely had doubts on both sides of it. Like, am I supposed to be here? Is this going to work? Do I have any right to be doing this? I think imposter syndrome is an outcome of caring about something a lot. So yes, I had all of that. I had all of the, like, what right do I have to be doing this? Like, I'm just pivoting my business on a whim. This is my intuition and where I think I should be and what my experience tells me. But I started my business out of nothing and just trying to figure it out. So I think it's all just been this like, oh, well, we're doing this now. We're just gonna I read, I spent 12 months just invested in and sitting in reflection pretty much of myself and doing a lot of inner child work and a lot of healing and a lot of shamanic work and things like that. And so in that investigation, it just sort of came forward and I had to just sort of make it up as I went along. But I read Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and that in that year, and that locked for me. I just went, right, if I don't believe in this, if I don't drive this, if I don't create this, like if I'm not the one doing it, it's never going to work. And so I think that locked in for me that it was just like everything that I was creating, I had to believe in more than anyone else ever could. And I had to sacrifice more than anyone else would ever understand. And so when I shifted to men, it was like, is this going to work? But also I believe so hard that it is going to work that it did.
And I, from an outside looking in, I would say that, when it comes, you had the doubt, and we all have those doubts in who we are and what we're working with. The fact that you had the doubt and you were able and had the skills and the understanding to push through that doubt to say, no, this is what I'm sure. The fact that you had those skills to do that probably says that you were right to do it in the first place, to work with those. Like, because ultimately you've got to be able to teach anyone, whether you're working with male or female. What you work in is how to work through that. If you can work through that yourself, then you are equipped to teach and help the guys that you're helping. So how do you respond to questions, like when you're questioned by other people, why as a woman are you working with men? How do you respond to that?
In the same way that we are now. I think it's just like, I truly believe that we need better role models. And I think that as adults, we get to this point where we think we've, made it far enough, or, like we should be able to figure it out, or we should know better, or we should be able to do it ourselves. And I think that like coaches and mentors and things like that, we need role models to learn the next step. We need people to look up to be able to go, oh, they're doing it in a really interesting way. I'd really like to learn that. I'd really love to round out that aspect of my personality, or I'd really, love to extend my knowledge on this. So who am I going to find to teach me that? And I think that I think desperately women need to work with men, and women need to work with women. And I think that men need to work with men, and they need to work with women, because we all have the dark and the light, the yin and the yang, the masculine and the feminine. Like we all have these aspects, but the predominant thing that I see as being difficult out there at the moment is that men don't really understand, not all men, obviously not all men, but a lot of men don't understand the emotional state. And there's a washing machine in their brain and a fucking override of thoughts and so much going on, and no way of navigating how to like pull some of that out of their vision and put it in the periphery and go, right, I understand where this comes from now. I understand what happened to me. I understand why it happened to me. I understand what it's taught me. I'm going to put it over here so that they can start to have a bit of a clearer vision of where they're going and what they're doing. But, we're all just trying to like fuck around and find out with this mayhem of all of our experiences and all of our parents' experiences loaded on top. And there's no, way of unpacking that. And so I think, for me, I had to figure it out. Like I worked with a female mentor for a really long time. And one day I just said, like, I think I need a new mentor, and I really need it to be a man, because I need to learn what it feels like to be held in a man's energy, who's doing the work on a regular basis, who's confronting himself, who's like pushing himself to do something better, so that I can adapt my system to what that feels like. Because I don't have a reference point for healthy masculinity. So I had to find a role model for that, and it had to be a man. And now I've got, as like, one of my coaches, Ryan, I've got more men in those positions so that I can explore that, because I think that we do need role models ahead of us. So I think anyone that says that men should only work with men, or what right do you have to be? It's like, most men are heterosexual looking for a female partner. If you only do the work with men and you never have healthy interactions with women, how do you reconcile that? Like, you're all looking for partners, and you all had mothers. Whether they were present in your life or not. And so there's elements of that we need to reconcile, we need to heal, we need to understand, we need to investigate. And majority of the time, men are more comfortable explaining that sort of stuff to a woman. It feels safer.
Yeah, I find that one thing that really stood out to me, I was actually a bit over a year or so ago, we got approached by a charity that promotes clear my head, I'll remember it. But it's essentially supporting men's mental health. And Evan came across them, and they're like, we find it hard for people to support men's mental health, because it's, men are generally a lot of spaces responsible for domestic violence and that sort of thing. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to support you guys, because, as women, we should be supporting healthy men too. And it blew my mind that people would have and I get, there are issues, but I'm like, if we don't support the males too, to be more healthy and more deal with their issues as women, And that really struck me. I'm very lucky with my husband, Evan, and he is in touch. And I think that's why it blew my mind a little bit that you wouldn't support a male in there. So I think, yeah, as a society, we're still struggling with that expecting men just to work it out.
Yeah.
And that they don't need mental health support. Like that blew my mind a little bit.
Yeah, that's really, I think um the demonization of men society, like in society, is, you know, a lot around that. Like there's so much the toxic masculinity. Like I really have a beef with that terminology. And toxic femininity. Like it's hurt people hurt people. You know,
Yeah.
like if we don't understand the root of the problem, if we don't understand what got them there in the first place, we are a product of our environment. We're a product of our upbringing. We're a product of our belief systems. We're a product of what we were taught. You know, like it's just a program running and we have to update the information. But if we're running on an old program and we don't understand it, then we're a product of that. And so toxic, abusive, whatever it is, you know, like it's misunderstood people that don't understand themselves and haven't worked it out, and nobody's helped with that. And then I am a firm believer that we energetically attract the lessons that we need to learn. We're magnetic. We attract people to us. That's why when you get comfortable in something and when you know what it is and you're like, fuck yeah, this really works, I'm going for it, all of a sudden all the opportunities open up for you. But when you go, this is shit, it's never going to work, nothing works. There's so much friction. We're the same with the experiences that we come across in our lives, you know, like we can look at the experiences and go, that's really horrible. Why did that happen? I could do that about my childhood, right? I could say like sexual trauma, that's really harrowing. I don't want to talk about it, rah, like whatever that looks like. Or I could say like, what did I need that for? Because I was part of that situation just as much as they were, right? Like I called it in just as much as they did. So what do I have to learn from it? And what is that going to teach me? And what is it flow-on effect created in my life? And I haven't always been an awesome person, you know, like I've been through my fair share of shit in my life, and I've made my fair share of mistakes. But if I'm looking for data that says that I'm a fuck up and that it's always going to be hard for me, then that's what I'll recreate, and I'll keep having those lessons over and over again. So I think domestic violence and things like that, I'm not excusing it in any way, but we really need to work on ourselves, men and women. You know, like women can't. 75% of people doing the self-development work right now are women.
Yeah.
So we can't change it if it's like men need to step up. Men need to do the work. Men need to confront themselves, and that's harder. But I think that women have less patience for men because men process things. Not all men. But men process things at a slower rate, and they speak about like, you know, feelings and emotions and the way that they understand them at a slower rate than we will as women, because we verbally process and talk about things naturally and emotionally. Like we can create life. That's part of the way that we're developed. Men don't function in that way, and so I think that women often don't give men enough room to be able to be. It's not to say that men are slow at doing self-development or slow at the work, but it's just that thought process is so much more important. Not that it's more important than women's, but for them, the way that they think about it, right? It's like
we have to allow them to process it their way.
Yes.
And I'd probably be the worst one with Evan for sure. And I'm like, you know, you want to get, and we're going to talk about this, and it's come up, and he'll be quiet. And I'm like, I have got better to understand that he needs to take his time to go away and think about it and then come back to it. But you can be so caught up. And I love that you say that, because it makes me recognize it more, that he needs more time to process and talk. And I'll be like, you're not listening to me. And he'll go, no, I am listening. I'm just letting you have your vent. And I'm like, you're not responding.
Yeah. It's because I haven't processed it, and I haven't gathered all the data, and I haven't made an assessment of the situation and formulated a response and decided that that works well and that is actually what I believe before I can share it with you. I'm not inside a man's head. I've never been inside a man's head. So obviously I can't speak about that from first-hand perspective, but that's what I see.
Yeah.
And from all of the people that I listen to as well, you know, like it's a resounding, you know, like the way that men commit to relationships is so different to women. What men are looking for is so different. Like I think I was listening to Alison Armstrong and on Modern Wisdom the other day, and she was talking about, like men are looking for complementary. So masculine is looking for the complementary feminine, but women are looking for same. So our masculine dominant traits, we're looking for men that are strong in the same ways that we are strong. And then we're competing with them for who's the strongest, which is what I see right now as well is, like people are saying, oh, there's all these, like feminine or effeminate men. And I don't think that that's actually what's going on. I think that women have fought so hard to have the leading role, to have equal whatever. Anyway, I don't necessarily agree with all of that, but they fought so hard to be at the front that men are displaced from their role in society. So if men can't lead the relationship, if they can't lead the family, if they don't have the dominant role of like the breadwinner and all of those sorts of things, we're constantly challenging them for who's leading. And if you are competing with your partner, you've already lost. Like there's no way, like it's partnership, but we've created a society that pits men and women against each other.
Yep.
So if we're constantly competing, then we're never working in partnership. And if that's your home life, then where do you go? What do you do?
Yeah, I never thought about it like that. Like, because I think I'm just very lucky that I have ended up with someone that, we complement each other. But you can imagine if you are competing. And I am a strong female, and I'm like, and obviously I've just found someone, and I'm very different. I've never believed in gender roles around the house or anything like that, that it's a female job or a male's job. That might come from the fact that I was, one of five and there was 4 girls.
Yeah.
So we were like the females sort of ruled the house anyway, and we lived on a farm. So we went out and we participated in the farm work. And so it's just certainly in my house, it's never been male, female. We all share, our son had to learn how to cook and help. So like I've just never been that way. So it's interesting to sit there and view that way, that there are probably relationships where they're competing with each other because while you've become a strong female, we're still following the gender norms that we expect a male to be the breadwinner, but how can they if you're trying to be the strong female as well?
Well, and at the moment, there's a lot of like I've got friends that are looking for partners and stuff like that, and it's like, oh no, I feel like I would be challenged if he earned more money than me, and I'm like,
I don't think it matters.
lots of people.
No, to me, it's never been about. It's been about who's right, and that I actually love and enjoy being with. But yeah, I guess as women, we've been, like, as you said, grown up to, like it's been brought up to compete with the male, so we're trying to.
Yeah, definitely.
And I never really thought about it that way because I've not been that way.
Well, there's a lot of it out there, and I see that a lot. Like even I asked my mum once, like when was the last time that you feel like you were, like in your feminine, like soft and receptive and creative and playful, and she said, I don't think I ever have, and I don't remember a time in my lifetime where I've ever seen my mother in that either. And I was like, well, how the fuck am I supposed to, like meet this ideal, like soft and feminine and whatever? And like, I think that it took me a long time to process or to rationalize what being feminine meant to me, because, like I think that there's different archetypes for what that looks like. And I'm quite naturally strong and all of those sorts of things. And so, but also like grew up on farms and out in the outback and, like going hunting and, fishing with my dad and things like that. And our family's very practical. So it's always been fixing things or building things or, like making the most you can with what you have. So I've always had that way of thinking. And so reconciling, like, what is this feminine space to me and what does that look like? And how would I know if as far back as my mum can remember, she's never seen a display of what that looks like successfully in our family line. And so I would naturally do what I've been taught to do, which is in my family, my mum is in charge, like she is the mastermind. She's the ideas person. She like makes everything happen. and my dad does the work, whatever mum says, this is what we're doing. And so like I recreate relationships like that, and then I get into them and then I go, this is fucked. I don't want this. I want you to be assertive. Why won't you be assertive? But I'm recreating my parents' relationship because that's what I'm programmed for.
Yeah.
That's what I know. And that's what I've seen the display of masculine, feminine looking like in the world for so long, not just with them, but, you know, a lot out there. So we're trying to create something that we've also spent decades destroying. I think that men feel ultimately quite displaced and lost at the moment.
Like, I can definitely see that. Like I've gone to a few different self-development things, and they talk about feminine and masculine energy, and I'm like, mate, I just don't even know what feminine energy is. Like, it's so in the masculine, and then that's even hard for me, because it's like, well, maybe that's just me. Like, why do I have to be in the feminine energy and be like that if that's not me naturally? So yeah, and I go back, yeah, and you're just like, it's too much sometimes. So if I feel that way, of course, men are going to be feeling that way.
Definitely. And I think, you know, like so many people are saying, you know, like there's maybe commentary around like, you know, women need to get out of the masculine and into their feminine and fucking whatever. And what does that mean to any normal person if we don't understand what those energies are? And I think it's being able to switch between, like, if we change out like feminine for creativity, ideas, you know, playfulness, nurture, nourishment, like the food that you eat, the slowness that you enter into your day, like the creativity that you have, the amount of play that you have, the slowness that you enter into your day. And then if you think about masculinity as being the achievement, that's the like, this is what needs to be done and actually getting it done. That's the go out and do, the tick it off the list kind of focus. So if you can slow down enough and create enough space so that the ideas can come through, so that then you can have the idea and make the plan around the idea and then execute the idea. That would be being able to move through masculine and feminine energy. But you also have, you know, like dark and light versions of that as well. And so, which is, you know, like what happens when you're triggered? What happens when you are uncomfortable? What happens when you're in a reactive state? Where do you go? How do you respond? How do you navigate that? And how quickly do you come back to whatever your baseline is? And I think that that's the thing. It's not about women being in their feminine all the time and men being in their masculine all the time. I think it's the ability to be able to traverse that landscape on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, on a whatever your life requires of you to be able to, you know, like build the life that you want or to achieve the goals that you're going for, or whatever that is. It's like, you know, how regulated is.
That's what I mean. Like, so, and that's what I was thinking when you're talking, is instead of focusing on masculine and feminine, focusing on being a regulated human being to deal with life. And if we take the male and female out of that, just like, what do you as a particular person, whether you're male or female, need to be emotionally regulated?
Definitely.
And deal with your situation, because everyone's situation is different.
Yeah, but everyone's situation is definitely different. I say this to the guys all the time, like, we're complex, but we are not complicated. Like, we aren't. Like, we all function on a very similar way. You know, like, it's like the foundation of understanding, which is like my phase 1 program, 10-week program. That's just it's a foundation. It's not saying that it's going to work for everyone, but it pretty much is applicable to everyone. Like, anyone could pick that up and go, right, I can start to understand, you know, like what my belief system is and where my boundaries are, and where I hold resentment and rejection, and where I use like addictive tendencies, or where I'm reliant on things to, you know, like to hold me into that. And then what are the patterns of my parents that I'm repeating and replaying? So it's like we all do need to figure out what it is for us, but the self-work is the self-work is the self-work is the fucking self-work. Like, it's not actually that different at the foundation, grassroots of it. That's what we're building off. And then I think once you understand how to regulate yourself and what's going on and what those emotions are that are coming up and how to investigate them and that sort of stuff, then you can start to bring forward passion. You can start to create space where that comes out into the world, and you have what it takes to be able to, you know, pursue that, which is regulation. and courage to take risks. That's a massive part.
So, have you ever received criticism that has made you want to stop your type of work?
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely. I think,
And how do you move through that? Because I personally struggle with criticism. Like, imagine, obviously, I don't work in such a different field. So I always love to hear how people deal with that.
yeah, I have a lot of haters. It's fun.
They say if you don't have haters, you're not like you got to be above to
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, and I think, it's a beautiful thing for exposure as well, because, if people are hating your work, then you're triggering something in them, which means that you're showing something uncomfortable for them. But the way that I look at it is that if I get, like if I get negative comments or people that are criticizing me or, saying things, I look at what have I just triggered in them, and if it's triggering for me, then that's my work. So why is this uncomfortable? Because I obviously believe whatever they're saying in some way, otherwise it wouldn't be affecting me like that. And I remember seeing a thing that Teal Swan said, and she was talking about your haters are like they're the best people that you can have, because they will call out your shadow. They will call out the things that you don't want to look at, or that you're like, oh no, I'm just going to deal with that later. They're the ones that'll call those things out so that you can see it, so that you can work on it, so that you can move forward and you can grow. And I think that that's an excellent viewpoint, because if at any point someone's criticizing you, it's like, well, if you were comfortable and you knew that that part of you was reconciled, or that thing you were doing was actually great and you were happy with where it was, the criticism wouldn't trigger anything. You'd just be like, oh, that's interesting. But when it triggers something, you have doubt, you have worry, you have concern, you have disbelief, you have whatever they've triggered in you. So that's your work. And that's an invitation to develop yourself more. So I look at it in that way now. So if they message me and they say something along the lines of, just what we need, another woman telling men how to be men, I'm like, initially I was like, oh, and am I trying to tell men how to be men, and having to work through that and go, well, actually, no, I'm not. I'm just helping them to understand a different part of themselves. And so when I reconcile that, then I get those comments in and I go, interesting. Like, cool, thanks. And I think, like that opens that invitation, or I can see in them when I'm not reacting to it. So I always talk to the guys about, if you're in a state of reaction, you're never going to make a good decision. Yeah. Not ever. You won't make a regulated, rational, respectful decision. So if I'm not reacting to a negative comment, then I can see what he is reacting to. So I can see what part of my work is triggering his response that means that he actually needs it, but doesn't know how to ask for it, or doesn't know how to want that, or isn't ready for it yet. But if I'm in a reaction, I can't see that. So I'll never respond to someone when I'm reacting, because I'll never it'll never be a good response, and it won't be respectful. And, my response is always not for them, but for the people that think like that, but aren't saying something so that they can read it.
Yeah, because possibly you're right. If they're actually at the point that they're putting it out there, whether it be on the internet, that they're certainly not in a space to take probably anything you say to them anyway. But there could be other people reading it that are maybe more open and have had that thought, she can't help me, and then to see your response. Because I always do say that, especially with my daughter, growing up in a different age category to me, and she's very passionate about things. She'll say, oh, when people say certain sexist or racist, why don't you fire back? And I'm like, because if they're actually voicing it, probably what you're going to say is not going to affect them anyway.
No.
Because they're so caught up in that.
Yeah.
But I find that interesting to say, take the time and respond respectfully for other people to see that might be thinking it, but not putting it down, and might be closer to being ready to change their thought process.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, people are always watching as well. Like it's your work to do. Like if people don't like what I'm doing, that's fine. There's going to be millions of people that don't like what I'm doing, and that's okay. I'm not here for them. But If I'm triggered, then it's my work. If I get, that's how I deal with haters. It's like I go away and I go self-inquiry, like, why did that trigger something in me? What do I have to learn from that? What don't I believe about this? What do I need to do to be able to move myself forward so that I can reconcile this piece and put it into place? Because that's obviously something that I need to see. But I think if we just go, they don't know what the fuck they're talking about or whatever, can we dismiss it? We are dismissing an invitation to understand ourselves at a deeper level. I'm always looking for that.
Because it must be hard to not fire back sometimes.
I don't think that there's a point, my number one core value is absolutely radical self-respect. So I have the guys say, like one of the core beliefs, like always respect your elders. And I'm like, just fucking respect yourself. Like if you operate from a place of radical self-respect in everything that you do, in all the ways that you speak, and in all the people that you address, and in all of the experiences that you have, you will always be respectful. And if you're disrespectful of other people, you're disrespecting yourself. Everything is a reflection of how you feel. So just operate from a place of respect always, and respect yourself as the primary person in that, so that everything else emanates from there.
And I think that there's a value in hearing that, because one thing I'm doing or trying to work on at the moment is just boundaries. Like, and if you don't, and that sort of talks to me, if you don't have, you can't put boundaries in place if you're not respecting yourself, because by not putting boundaries in place, you're allowing other people to disrespect you, and which you're allowing, you're disrespecting yourself.
Definitely. And I think, like so many people say, oh, they didn't respect my boundaries. It's not anyone's job to respect your boundaries.
You didn't make them respect your boundaries.
You've got to hold your boundaries. The only person that's got to do anything with your boundaries is you. Like, you have to speak them, you have to hold them, you have to show up for them. You have to be the one that says, this is my boundary, and over and over and over and over again. And if this boundary isn't adhered to, this is what will happen. And then you have to follow through with the action. You have to block the people. You have to cut them off. You have to stop speaking to them. You have to do whatever that looks like. You have to stop showing up and your time off. Like, nobody can manage your boundaries for you. Like, it's all on, but people go, oh, I should be able to just say my boundary and then they should know it and respect it. It's like, no, we have to train people. Like, we have to teach people that because when you start putting boundaries in place, you're also changing your own behavior. So you're conditioning other people by default of changing the conditioning that you have and the understanding that you have. So you have to repeat those. It's not their job to remember your boundaries. They're dealing with their own shit show.
Yeah, and they're trying to achieve what they want out of what they're going through.
Yes.
And if you're not going to communicate your boundaries and continue to communicate.
Well, I think you've conditioned people to that point to know that that behavior is okay to that point, and then you're changing it, not them. You're the one that's changing something. So it's your job to manage the change. Because again, the person you have to supervise adhering to your boundaries is yourself. But you are changing the terms of a relationship, not them. So they need to understand that. But you're the one that needs to. And
I guess you also need to understand that it can actually change the relationship.
Yeah.
And be prepared for that.
Yeah, well, that's what you're asking for. Yeah. Like, you're changing the relationship with yourself. And so by default, you're changing your relationship with everyone around you, because you're evolving. You're up.
And it can be hard and scary, that's for sure.
I say to the guys all the time, I'm like, no part of this is easy. Like, it's not fun. Like, it's a perpetual state of discomfort. Figuring this out, and imagine like lots of people are starting to go on this journey now, and they're 40 or 50 or 60.
You've done it the same way for so long.
Yeah, there's so much commitment to the dysfunction
that we thrive on it, and we don't know anything else.
And we're negatively biased as well. Like, we are, unless you've done a lot of work, and you continue to do a lot of work, we are predominantly negatively biased. So we will look for the worst possible outcome. We will look for all the reasons why it won't work. We'll look for the catastrophe. We will look for the drama. We will look for all of the things that confirm our belief that it's not going to go well. And like, if that's what you're hunting for, that's always what you'll find. So, and for anyone that's thinking about doing self-work, it's the hardest thing, the single hardest thing that you will ever have to do in your life.
Yeah.
Is face yourself.
And I guess that's why some people end up in that, like, a dysfunction, is because they don't want to face themselves. And until you are willing to do that, it's scary.
It's perpetually scary. I spent 30 years of my life, more than that, maybe 35 years of my life, trying to climb out of my skin and run away from myself. Like, I can't, that's been the predominant thought, is like, I just want to like claw my way out of my body, out of my skin, and fucking run. But you're the only thing that you can't escape. You're the only thing that you can't get away from. You're the only thing that you can't outrun. And yet we're all perpetually trying to escape ourselves because we want a better life because someone else's looks better. And they're trying to outrun themselves too.
And I think that's the thing also with social media, is that you think people's lives look better, but they don't. We're perfect lookout.
Yeah.
So, what do you think is the most misunderstood thought about the work you do?
That men should work with men, or that men shouldn't work with women. That's probably one of the things that I hear a lot, but one of the most misunderstood thoughts about the work that I do, that I'm trying to tell men how to be men, or that I think that's probably the biggest one, is that I'm trying to tell men how to.
But are you really, or are you just trying to tell men how to be themselves?
I'm just helping men to figure out how to understand themselves.
That's what I mean. Like, you're just trying to teach them who they, like, help them find who they are.
It's only one aspect. You know, there's so much. I'm about to run a retreat, and it's really important for me. I've got a lot of my one-to-one guys that have got opportunities to hold breath work, to hold the men's circle around the fire at nighttime and things like that. Because for me, there's only so much that I can do. Like, I also need to remove myself because they need men's time to digest and to talk and to understand it and to hold each other in the space that they need without women present. I think that, like, that's fundamentally one of the most important aspects, is that, like, doesn't matter, men or women, we need time with our own gender. We need time that is focused on, you know, like, what we love doing to understand ourselves or to bring ourselves out. We also need that, you know, cross-pollination of information coming through, where men can sit with women and learn, because all men were born from a woman. You can't say that you don't need it or you don't need to understand it in any way. I think that, you know, like I said before, you know, it's like we're all trying to fight each other, we're all competing with each other, and while that's happening, we're never going to have, you know, any form of success in that.
But it does make sense to think that if, you know, like, if the men you're working with are struggling in relationships, for instance, and they've not had healthy relationships model to them with females, or they've not had a healthy female role model, that they can't learn something from you in understanding how females. You know, like, how can you, if you've got no healthy female relationships to go back on, and that's what you're struggling with, that a female can't give them perspective over, I guess, what females are looking for too.
Well, and if your pain, so this is, you know, like, I think one of the things for women, you know, there's a lot of sexual abuse out there. There's a lot of sexual trauma. And if you go through that experience and then demonize all men because they're the problem and that's where the pain comes from and all of those sorts of things, then there's a whole part of ourselves that we're not reconciling, we're not regulating, we're not understanding, because we're just like, no, that's bad, therefore it's over here. And so I think that, you know, for women who have been through sexual abuse, it is even more important to work with men who have done a lot of work on themselves and who are safe and who do know how to hold that space, so that because there's a whole bunch of healing that needs to happen on the masculine side of things. And I think it's the same with men, like there's lots of men that didn't grow up with great mothers, or that, like were horrendously hurt in relationships or something. They need to be exposed to those conversations, to someone who is showing up and doing a lot of work on themselves and constantly holding themselves to that. And I'm not saying like always me or anything, but I am holding myself to that standard. I am constantly assessing myself, working on myself, building myself bigger, like exposing myself to things. So what I see in that is, like a lot of men don't know what it feels like to be believed in or encouraged by a woman. And most of them just want someone to say, like, I love you and I believe in you and I believe that you can do this thing. And I think that that's one of the elements that it's just one tiny piece, but one of my gifts that I'm starting to understand now is that I can believe in someone and encourage someone so deeply to do something so hard. And that's what my one-to-one clients get over 12 months is this belief and this holding to like this outcome that they can achieve, or this version of themselves that they are going to work towards. Because when you're in it, you can't see the forest for the trees, like you're in the pain. So how would you see the perspective of how you're also going to traverse that or move out of it? And I think that that's one thing that, like the warrior used to go away to war and come home to peace, like the women were the counsel for a long time for like kings and things, they would quietly in the bedroom sort of ask her opinion, because women are innately intuitive. And so I think, there's a huge part around men trying to figure out how to build that trust in women back up again. Because ultimately what we do is betray their trust. We get them to be vulnerable with us, and then we go and tell all of our friends. And we betray their trust. And so, it takes them so long to get to a point where they feel comfortable to be vulnerable. As soon as you betray that, they retract so far away. So I think that there's a huge trust thing going on. And what I'm doing is creating a safe space for them where they can have those conversations on an ongoing basis. They can ask me questions that they're terrified of being judged of, knowing that I'm never going to judge them, knowing that I'm always going to give them a balanced reflection, knowing that I'm always going to give them something else to investigate about themselves. But having a safe space to be able to ask all of those things, or to be able to come to and learn in that way, all I see is that they all start to like soften, and that guard seems to come down a little bit, just, week by week, program by program.
Yeah, I never even thought about, like, obviously it's good to have someone to talk to yourself, but I generally, in my relationship, it would have to be something serious for me to go talk to my friends about. Like, and I can see how, like, if as females we feel like we've got to go tell our friends everything in the relationship, that can be a problem, because I've never done that. Because I do hold that relationship between me and my husband as sacred. Like it would have to be a serious concern for me to even talk to a family member or something about. I'm not going to go tell, those important things to everyone. Because I guess that fit, but then I can see that other females do that. I can see how that can affect males for sure. Like, you have to have someone you can confide in if you're struggling. Doesn't mean there shouldn't be some sacred part of your relationship.
Yeah, well, I mean, like you're talking about like social media and stuff like that. It's like nothing's sacred. There isn't a lot of that protection over, like what do I want to share and what do I want to keep for me? Like there's so much exposure.
I think certainly from a relationship point of view, often people seem to feel like they have to, on a social media front, make out their relationships perfect and amazing. And I often feel those people that are posting all the time about how amazing their relationship is, actually it's not.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
well, you could never know. I think that's the end result of that is like you would never know, and you couldn't know.
But what it does do, it puts everyone else into, always puts society in this, that we're trying to live up to this perfect relationship. Relationships we see on Instagram, but
they don't exist.
No, they don't, because no relationship's perfect. Like I've been with Evan for 18 years and it's up and down. And you put kids in there and you put business in there and it's never perfect.
Because perfect's an unobtainable state. Like I've got a client, one of my one-to-ones the other day saying, like, I just want to be the best at everything. I want to be the best at my job. I want to be the best at my breath work. I want to be the best father. I want to be the best at this. And I'm like, well, are you measuring your level of I want to be the best to your expectations of what the best is, which is always an unobtainable state? Or are you measuring your expectations to I want to be the best I can at any point? Because that's a very different outcome. That's a very different pursuit. Like I want to be the best I can at any point means that I might be 40% less than I was yesterday, today. And I'm still going to do the best that I can. And that will look very different to what it did yesterday, but I'll still feel like I've put in my best. But if we're holding ourselves to this perfectionism, like I have to get it right, I have to be the best, I have to outperform everyone else, I have to do all of that, like that's an unobtainable expectation. Because I think that we don't know where the expectation comes from in the first place. And so it's this constant driver for failure.
It's a form of self-sabotage. You're never going to actually.
So you'll always feel like you're not good enough.
And you can just go in that cycle. And that's probably where a lot of perfectionism.
Well, perfectionism is a fear of failure.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like perfectionism is a form of fear. It's a fear response that like, I can't fail, I can't get it wrong, I can't be learning, I can't be seen to be being at the bottom somewhere. I have to, it's a protection mechanism so that no one can see the faults or what's going on, which is like this whole, I've got to keep this wall up so that nobody can see that I'm a shit show back here. And I don't actually know what I'm doing. Which is...
We all have stages in life. We don't know what we're doing.
Definitely. And I think that we all have experiences with perfectionism as well. Like... I definitely still, battle with, am I getting it right or not?
Do you think that females or women can respond to men differently when they're in that vulnerable state?
Yeah, for sure.
And how do you hold that with care? Because obviously in your work, you have a lot of men in vulnerable space. Do you think that just come naturally that you know how to hold them, hold that space? Okay.
Oh, yes. Very interesting question.
Because I guess I asked it because obviously if there's techniques you've done, it'd be interesting to hear them because obviously as females, we might have males in our that can be vulnerable. Maybe you've got some tips on how we can hold their vulnerability with care. If we're not holding it, if you're finding people aren't, or as females, that males are feeling when they're vulnerable, it's not holding with care enough. Maybe there's some tips that we can think of.
I think, like for me, it comes quite naturally because I grew up in the outback, because I grew up on farms, because I'm practical, because my dad's autistic now, we know, and because I'm autistic and ADHD. And so for me, like I don't often use a lot of fluffy language. I don't soften things. I'm very direct. I'm quite blunt. I am usually the person that triggers people because I have this unfiltered honesty that comes out. Like I talk about the things that are impacting me. I talk very honestly about my experience, my trauma, my fucking all of the shit that's happened in my life. Because for me, there's no, like one doesn't exist without the other. I think what I see a lot of is that women want more words and more softening and more cushioning and more, this is going to sound like it goes against what I said earlier about men just processing slower, but women want more cushioning, that's why I don't work with women because I go quite fast and I'm very direct and I'm quite cutting sometimes, and that doesn't work predominantly with women. Men seem to fucking love it because they don't have to try and figure out what I mean. They don't have to try and figure out what I'm trying to say with all of this like exquisite language and all of this shit going on. But the other thing for me is I'm very action orientated. So this is what's going on. Once we understand that these are the steps we need to take to put it, to move through that. So I think the practical brain, like I speak that native language a lot, which is, this is what's fucking going wrong and this is what we need to change and this is where we need to go. And they're like, right, okay, I'll stop doing this and I'll go over here. And I think like women tend to, so much language, and men don't know what they want. They're like, like, fuck. But one of the other things I see is that because, again, not all men, but the majority weren't taught how to navigate their emotions, how to understand what was going on, how to regulate, all of that sort of shit. Feelings make them feel uncomfortable.
Yep.
And we have lots of feelings and they want to make that stop. So when we have all of the feelings and the problem, this is obviously quite a crude way of explaining this, but we have all of the feelings and we're like, where the, like, and it's clearly not. Men want to make that stop because they don't understand it and they don't know how to navigate it and they don't know how to hold it. So they're trying to fix the problem so the feelings go away. Like, if I can, I'll just fix it. And so men are trying to fix our problems and we're like, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen to me. I just need you to hold space for me. I don't need you to fix my problem. Like, I'll literally, like, this is what I would do. Like, I can talk myself around to a point where I come to a solution. I just need you to sit there. Like, you've got this. Like, that's all I really need. But men do want to find a solution. And so I think that men are treating women like men and women, and like in response, and women are treating men like women in response. And so I think we need to be so much more clear about, what do you fucking want? Like, do you want him to listen to you or do you want him to fix your problem? Preface it so that he knows what the expectation is. Like, I've had a really shit day. I really just need to vent. I don't need you to say anything at all, actually. I just need you to sit there. Cool. Now I know what's expected of me. I can do that. But we go, this is what's wrong and this is the problem and blah, blah, blah. And men are naturally problem solvers. So they want to fix it and they want the emotion and the weird shit to go away. So they try and do that as efficiently and effectively as possible. And then we go, you don't ever listen to me and you always do this and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, nobody knows what they want.
Yeah.
Like, we don't go into problems saying, this is the outcome that I would like to get to, or this is what I need right now. And that's, again, the regulation, the self-work. It's like, if you can't even understand what you're doing, then how is someone else meant to?
So do work yourself. If you're struggling with, in a relationship with your partner and a male, do some work yourself and communicate what you need.
Yeah.
It's communication, and that's what I love. Even like, obviously, I talk about the power connector, but connection, communication. It's all about, and part of starting this podcast is for me to understand. I think I could be so much better at it. I myself am very direct and just.
Yeah.
And I'm super, again, and I would be the first to say I probably don't have a whole lot of close female friends, and maybe that's why, because I don't flop around. And I'm very direct. Yeah. I'm just like, just say what it is.
But the thing is like for me, I understand now, like the neurodivergent conversation came in at the beginning of last year and I was alerted to that and I went, oh my God, fuck. Oh yeah, this is really bad. Oh yeah, I'm like way up there on both scales. That helps me to understand, like, I think superpower, I think it's amazing, but it helps me to go like, oh, I'm not broken. Oh, I haven't just been getting it wrong my whole life. Like, oh, the reason why I don't have lots of friends isn't because there's something wrong with me. It's because I haven't understood how to say that to people. Like, if you can come into a relationship, a friendship or whatever and just say, hey, like, this is how I communicate, this is how I function, then people just go, you're so offensive, you're so this, you're so triggering, whatever, and they divert. But if people know what to expect, if people know how you show up, if people know what you do, then they can acclimatize around that and then become more receptive. But I think that communication connection piece is so important because we need to understand the user manual for this shit. so that we can help others, because everyone else has got their own user manual and they all function slightly differently. And so if we aren't able to be like, this is how this, like, I respond to these sorts of things, and this is generally how I show up in this sort of way, and that's, important when you're coming into a new relationship, or when you're coming into a new friendship, or, like, to manage fucking conversations with your family. It's like, well, this is how I communicate. This is what that looks like for me, and this is what I need from you right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think across the board, that's communication is, like, interpersonal dynamics is the hardest thing that we ever have to reconcile.
And I guess that's where the self work comes in, is understanding that yourself. And because certainly if you've grown up without any sort of diagnosis or anything, you just think, you get taught, or you learn to adapt and dull it down and not be that way, because people don't react to it very well. Mm-hmm. And you're difficult and you're argumentative, and you're not being argumentative, you just say what's in your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the filtration system is different. Like, I am a different breed of human, I think. I have a lying function.
Mm.
Like, I
can't do it.
I actually actively can't, because whatever's...
I share too much.
Well, and I used to overshare share way too much as well. But for me, it's more around, like, the literal sense. So the Asperger's, the autism part for me is taking things literally. And so the literal sense is like, whatever's real for me is what's going on. I don't have the capacity to make a whole bunch of shit up around that, or hold on to any of the makeup shit. So I feel like in my life I got in trouble a lot because I was overly honest and I was overly forthcoming. And people don't really know how to take that, I don't think, because we're all so busy trying to make our lives look like something that they're not, and like, pretend like everything's fine when it's not. And I don't like, if it's fucked, then it's fucked, and I'm very clear with everyone that it's not going well. Or if I'm working on something, then I'm very clear with everyone that I know about what it is that I'm working on, and people know what I'm doing, because I can't make shit up. Not if I try.
And I think probably what I've struggled with is, it's that black and white, or just recognizing and being intuitive, is in my case, is learning not to give advice to people, because I can see that, like, shit's going on. Like, let's be honest, and you need to do this, this, and this, but not everyone wants to hear it.
No.
And I try, and for years I've tried, and now it's like, it's probably only the last year or two, I'm like, it's not my problem, it's their problem, they're on their own path. All I can do is, when they're giving me advice, just say, if you're not going to take advice from me, don't give it to me.
Well, and more to that point, I think it is like, just being able to say to people, like, you're not, you need to be able to work on this for yourself before you can, like, I think that's the boundary aspect of, like, are we being influenced by people who we look up to, who we respect, who we want to create lives from, like, and I think that most of us should be having that critical thought around our parents, like, are we still taking advice from our parents when we're trying to create a life that is different to whatever it is that they built? And so are they still the person that's equipped to be giving us the advice? On some things, definitely, but with our friends and things like that, it's like, like, before you can give advice, you first need to be able to work on it yourself. But also, I think, like, it's not our job to fix anyone.
That's a hard thing, is I'm just naturally want to help. And then it's recognizing that some people don't want to be fixed. And like, I'm there. Yeah. And even with our kids, they'll be talking about, it's trying to stop and go, are you wanting to vent, or do you want advice?
Yeah.
Because it's just natural to give advice to try and help them, because they were your kids.
Yeah.
But maybe they don't actually want help.
Yeah.
And if you're getting upset, because I think the hard thing is, I try and help, and then they don't listen, and I was getting upset. Well, then that's not my problem.
Yes.
Because if they haven't actually asked for help, why am I getting upset?
Definitely.
Because they're not taking my advice.
And I
didn't ask for it.
Exactly. And that's the thing of like, that makes often the reflection of that is that they don't, they might not need you anymore.
Yeah.
And how devastating to be a parent and not to be needed by your child. And I
Yeah.
think that children will say that to their parents many times. I remember saying to my mum, like, I don't need you to be my mum anymore. I just need you to be my friend. And she was like, what is going on here? That was, one of the many very overwhelming things that I said to mum on my personal development journey. But we have boundaries now around like, do you have capacity to read something or to go over something with me or to do any of this? But the other thing, like mum will ask me my advice, and at one point I was like, you need to get a fucking coach. I can't be your coach. I have a bias for what I want for you. I have a bias for what I think is best for you. I have a bias for your decisions. I have an invested bias in the outcome of your life. I cannot give you non-biased advice. I can't. You're not mine to fix.
And when you get into even that, family dynamics, I think one of the hardest things I've certainly done with the kids is like, and they probably won't even listen to this, to be honest with you, but because I don't have the conversation, because it's like the conversations are confronting, I just can only look after myself. And it is like, you expect something more out of the relationship than they want, and then you get upset. And so my big thing is I give the energy that I get back. It's like, if I'm getting upset because I'm giving them all this energy and jumping when they want help and whatnot, and then getting upset because I don't get it back, well, then whose fault's that? Yeah. That's my fault.
Yeah.
I match them. If I don't hear from them and whatnot to regularly catch up, well, then I live my life. But if they get in contact and want to catch up and give me energy, then I give energy back.
Yeah, definitely.
It's because you're getting upset at the fact that they're not doing what you think they should be doing.
Yeah,
but that's your perception.
And that's the whole thing around, like, I work on this with the guys for in legacy is like, not Ryan's legacy, but in the session of mine that I focus on like generational patterns and legacy, which is, like, legacy is not something that you leave behind. Legacy is the experience that you're having while you're here. It's the experience that your children have of you. Like, not what they remember of you, but like the actual experience that they have of you while you're here and while you're doing that. So lead from a position that is the outcome that you would love. So if we, I think that the tit for tat part is like, can be treacherous ground sort of thing. Because it's like, well, what would you love for them? And then you just hold them to that. So you show up in the way that you would love. You show up in the relationship that you would love to have for them. And then the floor is open for them to receive or to come back and to replicate that. But I think if you show up in a way that's like, well, I would love to have conversations with you on this kind of a basis. So I'm going to make that effort and I'm going to, do what I can to have that touch point with you. And then you're getting the aspect that you would love, which means that you don't overgive, you don't farm out your energy to them, you don't try and fix all of their problems, but you just show up in that way. And the invitation is that they can or not show up in the same way in return. But, like, it's following, like, what would you love from a relationship? What would you love a relationship to be? And then how can you lead in that way that opens an invitation for them? That's like people don't have to give you what you're expecting. So they might not give you back the thing that you're looking for, and that's your part to work on. But if you just show up going, I just want to have a chat with you, like, I just want to spend a bit of time with you, I don't really care what we do, like, and we let go of that expectation of all of the other stuff around it, and we just go, look, I just wanted to have 5 minutes with you. And if I get 5 minutes with you once a week and all we do is say hello and how was your day, then I'm good. I'm happy with that. But I think that what happens is we project that, like, this is what I want it to be and this is all of the things. And it's like, well, are you showing up to enjoy that person, or are you showing up to try and fix your mistakes that you couldn't do at that age? Like, I think particularly as a parent, it's like, am I trying to reconcile my own life through my child? Because we are repeating patterns. So I think there's a lot in that you can sort of look at and go, well, like, how do I want to show up? And if I just show up authentically in the way that I want to, then what happens? What changes? What evolves?
It's definitely something to Because I think that's probably the hardest thing to navigate. And in my case, I'm actually stepmom, so that's a whole. And they don't communicate with their biological mum. It's me, so that brings in that whole other element. And I think that's why it's probably more complicated and why I've taken a different route. But certainly, if you're getting upset at them not giving you back what you perceive you should get back, maybe it's your problem. It's all communicate.
Nobody knows what you want from them if you don't tell them.
Yes. So obviously you do probably some quite deep work with people. How do you protect your own energy when you're doing that sort of work? Because I think if you're a naturally really giving, helping person, it'd be hard to not do too much and protect your own energy.
Yeah, and
own boundaries.
Yep. And that is one of those, like, one of these journeys, like we live and learn, we build and grow as we go. I recently had to put boundaries in around my support WhatsApp chats because I was like available to people from the moment that I woke up until the moment that I went to sleep at night. And I was like, whoa, this is not okay. Like, I never have a time to turn off. And I also realized that I'd signed people up for, weekly sessions for 52 weeks. And I'm like, well, that's 12 months of I'm on all of the time. And that's actually not what I'm preaching. So I need to fucking change some stuff. I had to navigate some difficult conversations around what we could do to restructure a little bit so that I was managing my time in a very different way. And so the boundary for that is, like I want to read chats before 8 a.m. so bad.
It would be so hard. I struggle to leave people on red.
Yeah. So, and I hate that little red icon that says 1, 10, fucking go away. So I always want to make the red thing go away so I have to read things. But so sitting in the morning or seeing people message me after 6 o'clock and having to like ignore it and put it down to maintain my own boundary, that's so hard. It's so challenging because I want to help. I want to fix people's problems. I want to support them and they pay me to support them. But I also need to...
You can't burn yourself out though.
What?
Like, you're not going to be able to help.
Yeah.
If you don't look after yourself.
And I have so many times. And so I think like that's for this year, my focus is on joy and playfulness and connection. Those are my words for this year. Because I'm in my 4th year of business now, just now. For the last 3 years, I've sacrificed all of that. I haven't had people around me very much. I have been very isolated and I've been very fixated, thanks to ADHD, on, building my business and building it out and supporting my clients. And I'm just now coming up to like, all right, I'm stabilizing. Fuck, I need a life.
I guess it's hard. You want to help, but you're also got to practice what you preach. If you're telling them they need to look after themselves, you need to look after yourself as well.
But I do manage my diet very well. I do manage my exercise very well. I do have very strict but not uncomfortable routines because also that's part of the understanding the ADHD and the Asperger's and stuff like that. It's like I know that, like in the morning, if I don't have that routine, I am all out of whack. Like nothing lines up. And if I have coffee before I have food, then that'll set my nervous system off in the wrong way for the whole day. So I have all of this, like I don't my phone anywhere near my bed. I haven't for years. It's on the other side of the house. So when I go to sleep, there's no electronics in my bedroom at all. There's nothing else but my bed. It's like bed is where, like my room is where I sleep and I don't do other things. So that I have this, I've set up my sleep routine and things like that so that that's not disrupted, so that I can focus, so that I can regulate. I meditate regularly. I, sit in my own processes on a regular basis. I investigate myself. I have a coach, like I don't tell people to get coached without doing that myself. So there's a whole bunch going on in the background of self-management and self-maintenance that mean that I can show up for them because I think that's part of, like, for me, my integrity. And also what I say to the guys is like, leadership is how you go to sleep at night and how you wake up in the morning. So I hold myself to that at a very high degree of making sure that I'm functioning as efficiently and effectively as I can. And if I'm not, I'm managing that and I'm facing that and I'm working on that so that I can show up for them.
And that in itself is protecting your energy. So it's really there.
I'm regulated.
Mm-hmm.
Like that to me, like energy protection is just regulation, I think. Like it's being able to understand how to bring yourself back to baseline. So even, knowing how to put boundaries in place with clients if it's too far or if they're, like leaning too hard but they tend not to because guys ask for less.
Okay. There you go. Do you have like, obviously no names, but like a client story or testimonial of where you've really had that you're proud of, that you've had a profound effect on a client?
Yeah.
Obviously you've got probably plenty, but
yeah. I think the one that's prominent for me right now is a guy who came through at the start of last year, and when I met him, I just had this conversation with him the other day, but when I met him, he was about to separate from a 23-year marriage, two daughters, like owned his own business. And when I first started talking to him, it was just fucking chaos and so up, like really awesome man, like so much humility, but just beaten down. And when I first met him, that's kind of, and we had to build the trust over and over again. And he just said to me, like, my life is so fucking complicated right now. I really just don't think I can do your program because I don't have space for it. And I was like, well, every time we talk, do you feel more complicated or less? And he was like, less. And I was like, do you feel more like you can take some steps or less? And he was like, more like I can take the steps. And I'm like, do you feel more clear on what it is you need to do, or do you feel more confused? And he was like, no, I feel more clear. And I'm like, well, it's not going to make your life more complicated. The whole point of the work that I do is to untangle all of that. And so he's done phase 1, 2, and 3 with me now. I was just having a talk to him last week, and I was like, are you coming on for phase 4? It's the last one. Are we doing it? And he was like, I don't think I need it. And I just went into this straight away, like the intuition aspect, like the really pulling yourself out. And by the end of the conversation, he was like, fuck, how do you always do this? Like, I think I'm in, like, I'm definitely in. But what I was looking at for him was, I talked to you for the first time a year ago, and your life was a shambles. Everything was falling down around you and you didn't know what to do. And now he said to me on the phone, like, I feel like I have this calling and I'm not quite sure what it is just yet. And I'm like, we've talked about this so many times, like, you're going to be a mentor. And he's like, but I don't have any skills. I'm like, you've just survived a marriage breakdown, which men are terrified of doing because they don't want to be the one to end the relationship or ruin the family or separate the family or any of that sort of stuff. You've done that. You're raising 2 girls. You own your own business. Like, this is who you're going to help because you know that process and you did all of it with help and you didn't break. There were points in there. There were massive friction points, but he just kept showing up. Like phase 1 was separation and moving out of the house, and phase 2 was getting the separation agreed to, and phase 3 was rebuilding after the separation had been approved and gone through and all separated and things like that. So each phase of the program that I run, 10 weeks, was focused on a different level of his separation, his life rebuilding. And now we're in this point where it's like, he is going to help people and he's ready for that. But I said to the guys at the beginning, like, if someone came to you and said, this is your purpose, would you be like, yeah, that's awesome, great, I'm going to go for that? Or would it derail your life because you're so busy and you're so stressed and you've got so much going on that you don't know where to put it and you don't know how to act on it? And we've spent so much time for him, like pulling that complication apart and putting pieces so that he can start to regulate himself and he knows what he's doing and he's thinking bigger and he's looking out and he's lifting his head up. And now he's like, I can feel that I have a calling coming in, and he's got space to create that in his life, and he's got the courage now to go for it. And that to me is I was just like, I was nearly in tears after our call because I was like, this is my fucking mission. Like, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I want men out there being really positive role models in the world, you know, like following their passions, standing in what they believe in and showing up to the fullest extent of who they are, because then we get to have the most magical experience of them.
Yeah.
And he's stepping into that right now. And I think that just is like.
And I think that's beautiful, because I think the way you explain that and the work that you do, it would be too easy for you to not encourage that because you want to work with men and help them. But to encourage someone who's done the work to now go out and mentor and help other men shows that you're really just passionate about what you're doing and helping men and creating good role models, because you're now encouraging him, which technically mentoring other men can be a competition, but you're like, no, another beautiful male is out there. And that in itself is beautiful, because I just think even in the coaching and mentoring space, the right people are just attracted to the right people. So you don't need to vie for the right people. The people that should work with him are going to be attracted to him. And, you know, like, and I think that's just a beautiful story. It's you know, like, and for him to have gone through that experience, and actually that's probably what is needed more. And if you can help other men get to that space.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, like if I look back, I go, my parents separated when I was 15. I was off the rails by the time I was 13, you know, like things were not looking good. And he's got 2 daughters and they've just gone through a separation. And, you know, like I'm able to help him reconcile those things of like, don't make decisions about who they are right now based on the experience that they're having right now. You know, like when I was that age, I was fucked. You know, like people thought that I was probably going to have many different children to many different fathers and be a drug addict. Like that's what my 13-year-old self was heading in the trajectory of. Please don't make decisions that, you know, like don't react to who they are right now. You need to regulate yourself so that every time they come to you and they have a tantrum and they tell you that they hate you and that they, you know, their whole life is crashing down around them and they don't know how to regulate themselves, that you are just calm and clear, because they will regulate themselves to your energy. So if every time they get the same version of you and you just hold and you deal with that hurt afterwards, that's what you have me for. You come and talk to me about that. You deal with it outside of them. They don't get that. Then eventually they will keep crashing up against you and realize that you're not going anywhere, and then they'll soften around that. And they'll know that you're holding that. And they'll trust.
Ultimately, that's what they need to know, is that both their parents are there for them.
Yeah, definitely.
Regardless of what's going on.
But I think, you know, so many men are taking it so personally, and it's like, oh, you know, this whole chaos of the
teenage girls hate everyone anyway, even if they don't separate. Let's be honest.
Terrible experience. I wouldn't go back and do it again if you paid me. Not at all.
I always say I don't know how my mum raised 4 girls, and is still saying.
I don't know how my mum raised just me. I mean, and my brother, but like, yeah. Anyway, it was a nightmare. But I think, you know, like having that perspective to anchor into as well, so that, you know, he can go out and help other men because he has that understanding now. And there's no competition at all for me, you know, like it's like, I just think the more people doing it, the better the world's going to be. Like I'm just trying to help create the experience of men that I want to have in the world, because it isn't there right now. There's a big shift happening, and I think men need as much support as they can. There's so many people doing women's work. So many. That's
what I mean. It's not like there isn't support for women too.
There's so much.
And it's also a case of the people that are passionate and are right to work with women will work with women, right? So the people that are passionate are the right and have the skills to work with men, regardless of gender, will anyway. So, like, give everyone support. You just have to be good humans. It's just good humans.
I know. And it is like, because I think it's challenging for some people, but because I have been in pursuit of passion, so whatever I do is an outcome of my intuition and my passion. So it's like my business is a physical representation of what I feel like I'm here to do in this world, and what I feel like, and that'll evolve and that'll change as I go, as it already has from women to men. So it'll shift. So what I'm encouraging men to bring out into the world is that. Is that passion, is that like drive, that is like this insatiable need to create this thing because it's a representation of like your internal world. I think that when people step into that, they become so much, like it's exquisite and it's insatiable to be around. It's intoxicating, like watching someone when they get into their passion and they lock on and they engage, like it's magnetic. And I just want to do whatever I can in whatever way that is to help as many men do that as possible.
And that in itself is why you might have so many haters, because it's probably triggering to people that you follow your passion. Because a lot of us are scared to follow a passion. We get caught up in the societal norms and whatnot to do and achieve. And there's probably a lot of people out there wanting to follow their passion but too scared.
Or don't know what it is.
Yep, for sure. And that's it's interesting that it just ties into who I had on last week, Nikki, and she just gave all her corporate leadership, performance coaching up to follow her passion of working with horses. And she's just so sure what it is.
Yeah.
And I think that even triggers people because she's just like, and she does it her way. And that triggers people.
Yeah. And I think the triggering thing about that for people is that they're not, they don't have enough. It's what it comes down to. Yeah. It's a courageous thing because it's fucking terrifying.
For sure.
Every step of the way.
So what would you say it looks like when you see a man go from like people pleasing and shutting down to taking, ownership of themselves and showing up with clarity? What can you explain what you've seen that look like?
It looks like less explanation, less justification, less words, more direct. I think it's, but it's also like someone asked me the other day, I spoke at an event and she said to me afterwards, this lady, she said, what do you think a display of healthy masculinity looks like? And I said, I think it's a man who can confidently say, I don't know. I don't have the answer for that. Let's go find out. Let's figure that out. And that's not, I don't know anything and I'm not sure of anything or any of that sort of stuff. It's like someone who can so comfortably say, I don't know. Like, let's work it out, and be accepting that they're not trying to, and I think that's a really good way of, like being more comfortable with knowing less, or having less experience than you think you should or any of those sorts of things. It's like being comfortable with where you are means that you don't have to justify yourself to other people. So I tell the guys, like there's a few words that like we remove from the vocabulary and sorry is one of them. Because like, again, one of my core values is accountability over apology. So don't apologize for something. Acknowledge what's happened and what you have learned from that and what you're going to change. Don't fucking apologize to people. That's just a guilt and shame, like coming through. And so every time we go into setting boundaries, it's like a fucking novel. And I'm like, less than one paragraph, guys. Like, like maybe very like one sentence is a boundary. Otherwise it's too much to remember, but we're trying to make excuses for why we should be allowed to put a boundary in place or why we should be able to do this or, like why we've made that decision or because we're uncomfortable. And so I think a representation of what it looks like is less words, less explanation, more certainty, more like, this is my boundary.
That probably ties into what I was going to ask next is obviously part of the problem is a lot of men have been raised to be strong and not feel too much. How do you help them rewrite that narrative?
We unpack. I think it's just hacking in on a lot of levels. So hacking into the core beliefs, we start with goal setting, like I know that Ryan Tuckwood does that as well. And he goes into the great detail around like people always say, like, well, we have to set goals. It's like, yeah, because we need to have something that we're moving toward. Because if we are perpetually scared of our past, if we're trying to outrun our past, we'll just keep recreating it. And if we're only looking at our past saying, I don't want to do that again, we will recreate it. We will just keep turning over the same old fucking soil, moving around in circles. So if we set a goal, then we have something that we're anchored into, that we're looking towards, so that it's pulling us forward. But understanding the core beliefs, like, what do you even fucking believe about yourself? Like, what are those stories in your head? And what do they sound like when you say them out loud? And looking at rejection and resentment is one that the guys requested many times. So I put it in there because everyone's holding on to some level of rejection or resentment, and we're all fucking rejecting ourselves all of the time. That pursuit of passion is the opposite to rejecting yourself, I think. And being able to understand that. So, and understanding the patterns of our fucking parents. We're all just repeating cycles over and over again. It's all just patterns. And the more you can zoom out, the less personal it becomes, the more you can do something about it, because now it's not your fault. You know, like, now it's not something that you keep doing or that you just suck at or that you're just shit at. It's like, once you can start to blow that out and see, you know, like, grandma did it and mum did it and sister did it and, oh, I'm doing it too, you know, like, it's like, oh, right, okay, this isn't mine actually. And being able to make that detachment. So the start of it is being able to hack in and pull it apart and just go, well, what the fuck is actually going on here? And how much of that do you want to keep? And what's the process of changing it? Because I think that most guys just say, I just don't know where to start.
And I think even with goal setting, a lot of people don't want to goal set because of fear of failure and not achieving the goal. And it's just sometimes that's when you just got small steps. A goal doesn't have to be like we think it's got to be this big goal.
Yeah.
It can be just something so small.
And just
take a small step, a small change, and go, okay, well, because I think the thing with goals is they can constantly change. Okay, I've achieved that. What's next?
Yeah, and that's why my program's set out the way that it is. It's 10 weeks, a month off, 10 weeks, a month off, 10 weeks, a month off, 10 weeks, because we aren't, like, I spoke to a guy today, I'm like, how old are you? He's like 39. And I'm like, well, okay, so you've been dedicated for 39 years to this way of thinking, and now you've figured out it doesn't work. You know, like, we can't replace that. We have to build it out.
There's learned behaviors.
Yeah, and so we have to learn something new, and that is a slow process, because if you try and go from I'm here to I'm fixed, which doesn't exist, but I'm up here somewhere and everything's better now, this isn't sustainable. It's not a sustainable leap. We don't have the foundation to hold this. So if we've bypassed a whole bunch of learning in that will come back and bite us and sabotage us later. And so this, which is why for that guy that I was saying about before with the marriage breakdown, you know, like, we have just been fucking putting the pieces in the place, one step after another, just for the whole year. And now he's seeing these huge changes, but he's also seeing, like, his mind is receptive in a way that it wasn't before. He's creating different relationships. His friends are saying things about him, and like, that's, you know, like, whoa, bro, you're so calm now, you know, like, you're so easygoing, sort of thing. And he's like, I don't feel any different. I'm like, that's because it's sustainable. If you felt exponentially different after a year's worth of work, like, it's not so sustainable. You know, like, if we go for that big leap, it's like, oh, I can absolutely see that. It's like, I can see where I've grown in the last 5 years. I can see that. But it's just been one foot in front of the other.
Yeah, definitely. Like, the coach I work with, it's like, when we talk about making changes, like, one thing I struggle with is, like, relaxing and allowing chill time without feeling guilty that I'm not doing something. And she's like, well, I just need you to do 5 minutes a day. Because she's like, if I ask more than that, it's just going to, like, completely overwhelm you. All this change is just going to, and you're just going to shut down and give up. So just focus, and we'll do that for a month, and then we'll, you know, focus, instead of thinking that all of a sudden I'm going to take a couple of hours a day and sit there with myself. It's not going to happen.
No, and it's constant habitual change. So that's why I do push-ups with my live groups, you know, because it's like, so many guys want to get in shape and they want to go back to the gym, and I'm like, bro, let's just do, like, as many push-ups as we can per day. That's not like you have to do as, like, heaps or none at all. It's whatever you feel you can show up to in that space, because, you know, like, it's just around creating the consistent. I would rather you show up and just do one, or show up on the camera and say that you couldn't be fucked today, whatever it is, because that's creating that space to start building off of. And we're starting to, and over 10 weeks, they go, fuck, I couldn't. And I've watched it happen, you know, like their form is shit in week 1. And then week 10, they're doing clean push-ups and you're like, all we did was show up once a day, 6 days a week, you know, like for 10 weeks and you've already changed this. So it's showing that it's not hard, but consistent behavior is the only thing that.
Yeah, and like obviously social media plays into that because we're, you know, like especially this time of year and, you know, we're told we should be going to the gym, we should be doing all that. And like I did it last year for about 8 months myself and I was up at 5, 3 or 4 times a week. I was at the gym at 5, so I had to get up at 4 and then I was doing my 10-hour days, 12-hour days at work. I could prove myself I could do it. And I had to take a break because we had to move out of the house for some insurance reasons for a bit. And then I'm like, I don't even love this. Like I was just caught up in that this is what I should be doing. And there was no joy in it. So I gave it up and then just focused on my horse riding. Yeah. Because that's where like the physical activity that there's joy.
Yeah, yeah.
Like I think that's also sometimes as we get caught up in like, oh, this is what's expected. What can I do to look after myself that actually has joy?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And I think also there's the brain stimulation pieces as well around, you know, what do I need to move myself, to get myself going, to stabilize, because, you know, like even fucking following your passion isn't fun all the time, you know, like there's a lot of stuff that I like, and absolutely I agree with you, because that's why my words this year are like joy, playfulness, and connection, because I've realized that I'm like, whoa, I've been going so hard at doing this. Like I haven't got all of these aspects in, but it is around like, where do we find the balance? And one of my coaches said to me, you know, like balance is not this, balance is this, you know, like how do we go in this perpetual motion to move forward that is us constantly, you know, like doing different aspects. And that's that balance piece of like, how fast can you bring yourself back to baseline? How can you move through the things that you need to do, to achieve, to regulate, to feed yourself, to show up, to work, to do all of those things and be regulated through that?
So from your work, do you have one piece of advice that you can give other females that can help, you know, whether they be sisters or partners or leaders even in the workplace, to help potentially a male that they can see struggling?
For women, that's a really interesting, I would think about, what's the outcome that you want to reach? Where do you want to get to with this person? What's the outcome? And what do you need to do to be able to get there? Not what do you think that they should do, but what do you need to do? How do you need to show up to be able to help them to get to that place? So I think, you know, like telling someone that they need to fix themselves or they need to get help or whatever isn't really helpful, because it's
confronting.
Yeah, and it creates friction. And if there's friction, there's a defensive mechanism. If someone's defensive, then they're not going to do it. And so I think, you know, like people that say, oh, you need help and aren't getting help themselves need to really seriously fucking look at themselves and go, well, you know, like if that person does go and get help, well, I'm going to have to evolve. I'm going to have to update. I'm going to have to upgrade to be able to be near that. But we can't fix anyone. We can't change anyone. I say to the guys that the only person you can work on is yourself. So if you want that for someone else, then do it for yourself. Like be the role model that you want that person to see.
Yeah.
And whether that's a partner or a parent or a fucking child or a friend or a workmate or whatever that is, like hold yourself to the standard that you think that someone else should.
Yeah, and I also like think of the outcome, because is the outcome that you want to feel good helping them, or you actually want them to be the person or get help?
Well, and
if you focus on what the outcome, you know, sometimes the outcome might be that you want to feel good about helping them. And that's not always the right way to approach it.
Definitely. And the other thing as well is like, if you want the outcome to be, say it's a partner and you want the outcome to be that you guys can go on dates more often or whatever that looks like, then start talking about that. Like start setting it up so that, it's like, hey, I'd really like to, I had this with one of my guy clients. He wanted his partner to, like do a sunset dinner for him and all of this sort of stuff. And then he just, after his birthday, we talked about it and he was like, well, she should know me by now and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, did you tell her that was what you wanted? And he was like, no. And I'm like, well, how the fuck would she know? Like if you want to do it and you want it to be a surprise, then say, hey, my birthday's coming up. I would really love us to do this, but I'd really appreciate it if you could organize it and you could plan it. Now, if they don't show up, fine, right? But like we project an expectation on someone to get to an outcome that we're not clear on.
Yeah.
So what is the outcome that you want? And then what do you have to do to get there? Because if if we are in competition with people, then we are setting ourselves up and them up for failure. So if you're competing with someone, then like over time that requires assessment, right? Like, so if you keep showing up and you keep doing the thing and you're focused on the outcome that you want it to be and you're the one doing the work and there's no input from the other side, then you have to make a decision. Is this right for me? Is this worth it for me? Is this respectful of what I have to offer? Or do I need to move away from this situation? Whether that's a job, whether that's a partner, whether that's friends, whether that's whatever that is. What boundaries do I need to put in place to protect myself from this?
That's it for today's episode of The Power Connector. Thank you for tuning in. If something landed for you, pass it on. Share this with a friend, tag us on socials, or leave a review. I'd love to hear what connection means to you. And don't miss the episodes where Evan joins me. We'll be sharing simple, creative ways you can use design, print, and signage to connect with your audience and bring your brand to life. Until next time, keep showing up, keep connecting, and keep making your mark through the power of connection.